Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am joined by Tyler Senatori. He is in the upcoming Time's Up film, which you all know I am super, very excited about. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing very well, especially now I get to hang out with you for a little bit. So for those of you that don't know Tyler, he really started his career doing haunted attractions. I've been doing that for over 10 years, been a little scare guy over there, which is really awesome. I'm super jealous. I don't have the heart to do it. I couldn't do it. I don't like haunted houses or anything. It's too much for me. But like I said, he's now cutting his teeth in film, being a part of the new Time's Up coming up. So what can you tell us a little bit about Time's Up, man? Again, spoiler free.
Yeah, spoiler free. Well, I guess kind of a general idea of the film is it's a high school. It's the, New Year's teacher party. They're all getting together and there's this unexpected guest that nobody was expecting and completely upends the party and things go crazy. And yeah, that's about all I can say.
Yeah. And I'm very
It's
excited about it. The premise of everything and the cast, the crew. You guys have an amazing cast out there. This is going to be so much fun when it finally comes out. And I know you guys have had some delays in production and stuff, but do you have anything going you can talk about that's not completely under wraps for the future? Or are you just kind of taking it slow right now? Or
Well, I know as we're filming this, today is their last day on set. I got back a few days ago. I know, yeah, everything's set to be, yeah, finalized today with filming. Um, and then beyond that, when I know, I'll let you know.
no, I appreciate it because any updates we get, I would love to share with everybody. But you
Of
don't have to
course.
wait for me. Click the links down here in the description so you can follow Tyler on social media as well. Make sure you're checking him out. He's the hardworking guy. You're going to see a lot more of him here in the future. So, but we talk about right now. I want to take it back to the past, my friend. I want to know where horror started for you, your first horror movie, and your first horror movie was
The Shining.
what a
Which I guess,
perfect start.
yeah, I feel like a lot of people's first was probably The Shining.
Yeah.
Such a great movie.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, should we get into it?
Yeah.
Um,
How old were you the first time you had seen it?
yeah, God, I must have been 7 or 8 maybe.
Hmm.
Started real young.
Right. Do you
Uh,
remember? And it's funny because at 7 and 8, I mean, you're watching it and you understand it, but I don't think you completely have a total understanding about a lot of the things that are happening throughout the film.
no way, no. But in a way, it's almost like it's an interesting perspective. It's not a bad way to view the film because yeah, you almost have a different view on it. And when you get
Mhm.
older, you're like, oh, I completely thought it was this way, and it's this, and it's interesting. It's not a bad viewing experience, I don't think.
No, and this movie really helps to make you appreciate how you don't need a huge cast and a whole lot of kills for a movie to be a great horror movie. You know,
Not at all. I mean, yeah, I don't know the exact kill count, but very few.
right?
Is it
See, I
like
think if
two
you
people
count Jack
die or
Nicholson,
something?
two, yeah.
I think it's two, yeah. But yeah, you don't need to kill people to make a movie scary. I mean, there's a lot of movies where nobody even dies and it's terrifying. So, um, yeah, they just the sheer sheer ghosts and terrifying stuff and all that is more than enough.
And Jack Nicholson's over the top amazing acting really helped to really propel this movie into what it is as well. Do you remember who you were with the first time you watched it?
Um, I feel like I was with my mom. We watched a lot of horror movies together growing up. Yeah, I watched what else was there? The Orphanage, um, Silent Hill really scared me. So yeah, a lot of when I was little, a lot of horror movies I saw were with her. Um,
That's awesome, man.
yeah.
That's because that was me. I grew up in a video store. My parents owned a video store, so that's how it got started for me too. And my mom and dad were young, when I was born. So I had young parents that still wanted to be cool, so they let me do stuff that most parents probably wouldn't let their kids do.
That's
So The
cool.
Shining is one of those movies where you could talk about an endless amount of scenes. But I'd like to know which scene affected you the most at your young age and why.
Yeah, probably the ending, I would say actually. I was thinking about this a lot, and it just that ending, I don't know, there's something about it. It really left me feeling weird. Um, I think it's one of my favorite endings of any movie ever, actually. Just the, slow pan in on that picture. And I remember the first time I had no idea what was going on. I mean, I was
Mhm.
also 7, but even then, like even now watching it for the first time, I'd probably be like, wait, what did I just see? Um,
Right.
and that idea of like a cycle really
Hmm.
scared me. Um, yeah, where the past and the future, collide, and there's no um, time doesn't really exist.
Right.
Um, that really scares me.
And it's one of those things where who's to say stuff like that doesn't happen? There's no
Yeah,
definitive proof. And to see something like that, especially like you said at a young age, it's like, how is this possible? Because even like you said, to this day, there are so many different theories on what happens at the end of that movie.
yeah.
Like we see him in the picture. Was it an illusion? Was it him? There's so many different theories. And that's what I love about this movie is they left that ending open to interpretation. There is absolutely no right or an absolute wrong answer to how this movie ends.
Yeah, that's the best movies can do that. It's
Hmm.
it's awesome. I love, it's sometimes it's nice having a, finite resolution, but when a movie's really good and you get to the end and you're like, I gotta sit and think about this. That's the sign of a good movie.
I completely agree with you. I love being able to have to think about something. Um,
Yeah.
and The Shining, another thing, when we think about The Shining, again, there's a thousand scenes that we think of, but what's the first thing that pops into your mind when someone mentions The Shining?
I want to say the hedge maze, but if I was being honest, it would actually be the freezer scene where he's
Oh,
up against the door
mhm.
talking to Shelley Duvall. I don't know, that just pops right into my head. That's also a really good scene. And it's one of the scarier ones, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
And even before that, when he's walking up the stairs towards her and she has the bat and she's swinging the bat and he's like,
yeah.
honey, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to bash your fucking brains in. Like
Yeah.
that to me, like that was so terrifying as a kid. Like this dad is just so dark and disturbed that I'm going to bash your brains in. Bash him right the fuck in. And he's so calm about it. That to me was a
Yeah.
super scary scene as well.
Yeah, just I mean, he's amazing. He's one of my favorite actors, and I've taken a lot of inspiration from him. But yeah, his whole demeanor in that film is really scary. You would not want to be locked in a hotel for months on end with somebody like that.
The last thing you want is to be in room
Oh,
217 with Mr.
yeah.
Jack Torrance. so,
No way.
we talked about which scene affected you the most. What would you say your favorite scene from The Shining would be?
Favorite. Oh, it's got to be the bar scene.
Yeah.
It's got to be. It's so because it's a really complicated scene. It's on the surface, he's, hallucinating, talking about how much his life sucks, but I mean, it also like you can almost relate to him in that
Mhm.
moment, which is really kind of scary. Because
Yeah.
I mean, why would you want to relate to this guy? But I mean, he's not completely wrong with a lot of the stuff he says. Um, and I mean, he feels completely isolated. I mean, he's kind of done it to himself, and you know, it's mostly him to blame for that. But yeah, he feels completely alone in that moment. So alone that he has to hallucinate random people to talk to. I mean, he can't even talk with his wife or his kid. So
Right.
um, that really hit me, and also just the lighting and the cinematography, just everything about that was, you know,
And
Really,
even
really
some of
good
the
stuff.
goofy faces he makes as he's talking, he's just like,
Yeah.
but he pulls it off so well. Um,
Yeah.
and it's one of those things because there's so many things we could talk about this movie. Like you got obviously the here's Johnny.
Here's Johnny.
That's something that a lot of people think of. You got the scene with the lady in the bathtub, which a
Hmm.
lot of people, at my young age, I was like, whoa, there's a naked lady. This is awesome. And then turn to that monster and you're like, oh no, this isn't awesome. This is terrible.
Yep.
Or even when you got him writing red rum on the door and then Shelley Duvall looking in the mirror and her face when she realizes that it says murder on the mirror. It's one of those movies that there's so many different scenes that you can pick and choose from. But even if you take one of those scenes out, it could really make this movie incomplete. Now, where I'm going with this is The Shining is about as great of a horror movie as you can get. What are your feelings if you've seen it on the sequel, Doctor Sleep? Were you a fan of Doctor Sleep or?
I'm glad you brought that up. I love Doctor Sleep. I
Oh,
really
I'm
enjoyed
with
it.
you. I'm a huge Mike Flanagan fan,
Yeah.
and I love Doctor Sleep from beginning to end. I think it's absolutely perfect, and I love how it doesn't have to be known as a Shining sequel. This could have been a standalone film up until they
Yeah.
get to the Overlook Hotel.
Yeah, that's why that's one of the reasons I love it so much is it reminds me a bit of Blade Runner 2049, how it's adding on to the original, but not, not like, oh, Shining, oh,
Mm-hmm.
there's spooky girl in the trailer. It's very original. And it's only really
Yeah,
the ending where you see, much related to the original. And um even then it's done so impeccably you can't even be upset about it.
right. And
Yeah.
I love that they got the guy that they got to play Jack Torrance. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. He's been in
Oh,
the Hauntings of Bly Manor and Hill House, and he was
yeah.
Elliot from E.T. But he played Jack Torrance so well when he's at the bar and he's like when he's playing Lloyd in the
Yeah.
film. You got kids and they eat at you, and he's pouring in the drinks and trying to give them to him, and it's just that's such a again it's a reflection of The Shining, but it's its own scene at the same time. And it's such a
Yeah.
brilliantly done scene. I'm so glad that you're a fan because I talk to a lot of people that aren't. And I just got to
Oh,
bite my tongue, like, oh, go watch it again right now.
I know. It almost feels like people think they have to not like it. It's like, no, it's a good movie. Yeah, like
Such a solid movie.
my favorite part of that movie is Rose the Hat. I think she is an amazing villain. And just yeah, it was a blast to see in the theaters. I'm so glad I got to see that in the theaters.
Yeah. And you're right. Rose the Hat is dynamite. I mean, from her scenes with Abra and even the ending, that final scene where it's almost the wraparound where she's taking them up the stairs. Like
Yes.
Rose the Hat is so brilliant. And one of my favorite scenes with Rose the Hat is actually when they're in the grocery store and she sees
Oh yeah.
Abra. Wow, like that's such a powerful scene, and the glass breaks, and she's like, "I know where she's at." So then we kind of know shit's about to go down at that point.
Yeah, she is scary. She is very she she's such a great actress, and also she kind of does that Jack Nicholson thing a bit. She's, when she's going to, lure these children, I don't know, she does that smile, and
Yeah,
I think that was on
almost like
purpose.
it's an unsettling feeling of trust almost.
Yeah, and that's the scariest thing is, those scenes where she lures children. I mean, those are hard to watch, but I
Yeah.
mean, it's just like so well done.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It's like the baseball boy. That's a scene that, in the theater, I
Yeah.
remember they're all of us, we're all like, oh my God, how long are they going to do this for? And it's
Yeah,
so hard to sit and watch, but it was done so well. It wasn't overkill, but it was to the point where you're uncomfortable.
I was really surprised that was in the movie. I mean, that
Me
was
too.
brutal. But I mean, it makes you hate her even more. And if they can,
Right.
if that's what they want to do, so they succeeded.
Mhm. So we talked about The Shining, which is your first horror movie. We talked about Doctor Sleep, which is the sequel to The Shining. Now I want to go scream on you here for a second. What's your favorite scary movie, Tyler? What is your favorite horror movie?
Oh God. That is a really, really tough question. Um, Shoot. Uh, oh man.
It's a hard
Okay.
one.
It is a tough one. they're all going through my mind, all the ones that I love. Um, it's got to be, I think it's got to be, shoot, sorry. Okay, here, I'll just say one that I really like. I probably am going to change my mind when this is over, but The Changeling.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. Um, I know it's hard to pick a favorite, but at this moment while we're talking, I'll say that's my
Right.
favorite.
And
I
that's a movie that
really
does
like that
not
movie.
get enough credit. That's such a good movie.
It's not, it's also one that I saw when I was young with my mom as well, and I remember it being insanely scary. And it still is scary now. It's one of those movies kind of like The Exorcist where, I mean, it's an older movie, but it really can be scarier than a lot of modern movies.
Oh, it
Um,
definitely holds up.
and the acting, the story, everything. I mean, it's a mystery, which I love when horror movies can involve a mystery, kind of like Time's Up.
Yeah.
But same with The Orphanage, the Spanish
Mhm.
movie. That's also, I mean, it really gets you invested, which I
Yeah.
love.
Well, and I've always said that horror movies are very special because you can have a horror movie that's just as, if not even more emotional than a rom-com. And it
Yeah,
really tears your emotions out of you. Like I've always considered The Sixth Sense. A lot of people consider that a thriller, but I do consider that a horror movie. It's always been a horror movie to me as well. And there's so much emotion in that movie from the mother and his relationship. Like one of the scenes I think I've cried the hardest at in my entire life is when him and his mom are talking in the car, and the boy's like, what did she ask? What did you ask her at the grave? And she said, every day. And the mom's like, I asked if I made her proud. And they start crying and embrace. Like that's such a scene that like blows you away. And it's in this horror movie wrapped around death and ghosts.
yeah,
So horror movies can have just as much, if not more emotion than any drama out there.
completely agree. Yeah.
So we always, my friend, we end these with the same question. We go back to The Shining. We're going to a skull count. Now it's 0 being the worst, 5 being the best. We're ranking this on how this movie affected you and what this movie means to you, not the overall production story of the movie, just what this movie means to you. The Shining, 0 being the worst, 5 being the best. What is your skull ranking of The Shining, my friend?
It's got to be a 5.
Gotta be a
I
5.
mean, so, funny story. We actually stayed at the hotel from the outside shots of the movie when I was little.
That's
And
awesome.
so it's a movie that means a lot to me.
Mhm.
Watch it at least once a year. So yeah, it would have to be a 5.
That is so cool, man. So I do want to remind everybody again, make sure you are clicking the links down here in the description, giving Tyler a follow. Like I said, you're going to be seeing a lot more of this guy. Time's Up will be out hopefully next year, fingers crossed, or maybe later this year. I'm not sure about a release, but when I know anything, I'll let you guys know because you guys all know how excited I am for this film as well. Tyler, don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.